55, and we welcome in a newbie. We've never had the pleasure of talking to Bryan Cameron, managing editor of Eagles content on PhillySportsNetwork.com. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning. How you guys feeling today?
We're doing
Doing
good.
well. Thanks for joining us, Bryan. So I guess we'll start out since the Eagles named a new linebackers coach. I think everybody breathed a sigh of relief, but it seemed like Eagles fans weren't happy about potentially Matt Patricia coming here. It's going to be DJ Elliott, not as well known, but locally was the defensive coordinator at Temple, which Temple was not great last year, but I don't know if that was DJ's fault. What do you make of the move and just the coaching staff and the lack of continuity in the movement away from some pretty significant pieces?
I'm actually a big fan of the move. I mean, you said it right off the bat. It's a sigh of relief, right? Last year Eagles fans were panicking about the thought of not last year, 2 years ago they were panicking at the thought of Josh McDaniels, and now comes in Matt Patricia, who Darius Slay is very beloved in Philadelphia, right? We know the history between Patricia and Slay, so I think that was the cause of a concern because it was kind of like it's one or the other, it's Patricia or Slay. Now it feels like the Eagles are actually doing something where they're sticking to their culture, they're sticking to what's working for them. As far as Elliott, not so much on his background, but what I do know is that he's actually an expert in a 3-4 defense, which actually aligns with everything that Sean Desai is rumored to be bringing to Philly. I'm a big fan of what's going on the defensive side. From last year to seeing Jonathan Gannon, to seeing the possibility of what we could get from Sean Desai, it feels like Eagles fans will actually be in a good place defensively. I think the only cause for concern right now is getting the right pieces in defense going forward.
Now, wait a second. You know Eagles fans. I think said Eagle fans are in a good place. They'll be in a good place with Sean Desai for about 20 minutes. And the first quarter of the first game, when he doesn't blitz once, Eagle fans are going to turn on him in a heartbeat because they certainly, despite the fact that his defense put up more sacks than any Eagle defense in history, he still wasn't aggressive enough in the eyes of most Eagles fans. And Sean Desai blitzes less than Jonathan Gannon does. How long do you think this quote-unquote love affair is going to last?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think got to credit Eagles fans a little bit, right? We had a bit of patience with Jonathan Gannon over the last couple of years. I think that the make or break thing with Gannon and Desai is, if you actually look at Desai's track record, going back to when the Bears faced the Ravens, you said it, Desai doesn't blitz much. But against the Ravens, he actually blitzed over 68% against Lamar Jackson and I think it was Huntley at the time. So it shows that this guy is willing to adjust on the fly, willing to look at what's not working for him and actually improve on that. And that's something that we didn't see so much of Jonathan Gannon. We saw him sticking to what it was. People know that they brought Vic Fangio to be a consultant, but at the same time, if I'm telling you to, if I'm consulting you, I'm telling you, this is what could work, this is what can't work. At the end of the day, if I'm defensive coordinator, I'm running things my way, and I feel like that's what we saw a lot from Jonathan Gannon.
Well, it was interesting, the big thing, and obviously, Vic is omnipresent over the Eagles and the entire NFL, really, because so many teams run his scheme right now, and he, by the way, isn't happy about that. He mentioned that when he got the job in Miami. For people that don't know, he was brought in as a consultant to help the offense for the Super Bowl. Marcus Brady, who the former Colts offensive coordinator, was helping the defense, and the Eagles sort of switched it up. And basically, they were just saying, hey, if you're an offense, how are you going at my defense in this look and vice versa? So Vic wasn't really helping Jonathan Gannon. So, blame him for the bad stuff, give him credit for the good stuff. Number 2 defense overall. Here's my problem, Bryan. If number 2 defense isn't good enough, if number 1 passing defense overall isn't good enough, if 70 sacks, the most in franchise history, far more than my buddy Seth Joyner and anybody else got in the history of this team with Jim Johnson and Buddy Ryan, if that's not good enough, aren't we setting up Sean Desai for failure?
I think to a certain extent, I do agree with that. Coming in again, it's the patience factor, and like Jody mentioned, Eagles fans are not the most patient, but I feel like after seeing what Gannon has gone through and understanding that in this league, you can't have great continuity if you're going to be a contender at the end of the day. I mean, the Bills are losing a lot of players. The Chiefs lost a lot of players a year ago. And the Eagles are in that position right now where they have continuity on the offensive side, but defensively, it's a big question mark, right? But at the end of the day, it's things to build on, in my opinion, at least. They have a great defensive line. They have Hassan Reddick coming back. They have Josh Sweat. The rumors of Brandon Graham coming back. Jordan Davis is going to have himself a year where he's actually the focal point, whether he's lined up against with Fletcher Cox or Milton Williams or a rookie. Patience is going to be key, and I do agree it is setting the side up a little bit for failure. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a resilient franchise, right? It's all about resiliency in the culture. We saw what Nick Sirianni went through in his first season, how he was ridiculed from his first press conference, even to all the way to the Garden talk. And now a year later, they were in the Super Bowl. This team is going to contend just for the fact that they have an overpowering offense, in my opinion. But defensively, yes, you're right. They are setting them up for failure. But at the same time, you just don't know what's going to be delivered when you have a Hassan Reddick who just was masterful last season, who's only going to get better. You have, again, Jordan Davis, who's only going to get better, Josh Sweat, and things of that sort.
I need an opinion from you on the interior offensive line, because my partner Johnny Mack continues to make this theory about how the Eagles might handle their offensive line in free agency this offseason, which I think he's well founded in. If Jason Kelce's coming back, it's going to be very difficult to keep Isaac Seumalo. If Jason Kelce decides to retire, then the Eagles will make a more concerted effort to keep Isaac Seumalo. I was listening to my radio station WIP yesterday, and Joe Giglio was taking a stance that it'd be better for the Eagles if Jason Kelce walked away, because then they could use the 14,
By the way,
15.
can you slap Joe for me?
If I could have done it through my radio, I would have tried. But his line of logic was, that's $14 million you can spend on the defense instead to keep all these defensive guys we're going to lose. Oh, so you're going to lose both Kelce and Isaac. Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. But the main thing is Kelce's got to make a decision here in the next 3 days. He told the Eagles he'd do so before free agency kicked in. Give us your crystal ball and what you think would be best for the Eagles. Jason Kelce back for 2023.
I think what's best for the Eagles is Jason Kelce and putting that 62 jersey no matter what. I mean, definitely the best center in the NFL. I think best case scenario, he is back. And the great thing that I saw, and maybe John, you could attest to this, was Cam Jurgens saying, hey, I could play right guard if Jason comes back for another year. Like, I don't mind it. And that speaks volumes to Jeff Stoutland. I mean, probably the best offensive line coach in all the NFL. His guys are versatile. His guys are plug and play. They can do whatever is asked of them. And I think if Jason does come back, I'm not too worried about Seumalo. I think Cam Jurgens is a stud from what we saw last year in his little glimpses. And it's Stoutland at the end of the day. Like, if you're gonna have anything confident to say about the Eagles, it's gonna be about Jeff Stoutland.
Yeah, I going back to Joe's point, Joe does a great job. I'm only joking. He can have his opinions, but I go back to Sam Hinkie again when I hear stuff like this. You got a first ballot Hall of Fame player. Don't worry about the damn future. Worry about the future when the future is there. Take advantage of the first ballot Hall of Fame player, because I'm with you, Brian. I think Cam Jurgens is going to be a good NFL player. It's probably not going to be Jason Kelce. I mean, that's kind of unfair to expect anybody. And I just don't get this philosophy of, well, he's going to retire. He's only got a year left. Milk it. He had his best season, which is amazing at his age, and he was able to stay healthy. I get it. He's not going to be here long term. You'd like to roll things over perfectly, but you can't always do that. You got to take advantage of your best players for as long as they're playing the way Jason Kelce is playing. Boy, Jason, if he wants to keep going if he keeps playing at this level, do whatever the hell you want. Add another episode of the podcast. Do whatever you need. Be as happy as possible. I don't get it. Why do you think fans go down that route so much? Always worried about the future, especially when you're this close to winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm not too sure why people dig into that. I have a theory was kind of like, for example, free agency, people are spending the Eagles' money without having the Eagles' money. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, the cap space is the cap space. Howie always finds a way around it. A lot of things can happen. For all we know, Howie could pull off the move of the century, and that player ends up restructuring their contract. I don't know why people go down that road. Let tomorrow's worries come tomorrow. Let today be today. At the end of the day, and Jason Kelce, like you said, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, if he wants to play, I'm giving him whatever he wants to play under the year.
All right, I'm going to mention a website that I know both you guys know quite well. It's pretty good for guys in the industry like us. That would be Spotrac, which is a NFL cap analyst and data collector for contracts for all the players around the team, league, and teams. They came out with what they are speculating Jalen Hurts' contract extension is going to look like yesterday. First time they've done it on Jalen. And they slotted him in at 6 years, 263. This is how you can tell that it's done with a theorem. 263,190, 190,216,216. So, yeah, they're doing some adding and subtracting there, okay? And that would come out to an annual average value of 43.8 and change. And they do not give a percentage of how much they think the money will be guaranteed. And ask Lamar Jackson how important that is. That's the reason why he's got a franchise tag on his rear end right now, because he's fighting for every last guaranteed dollar. So they don't even go there. I got bad news, Eagle fans. I think this is short. I think Jalen Hurts is getting more than this. I'll quickly repeat it: $263 million and change for 6 years with an average annual value of $43,865.
Yeah, I think that's low.
I think you get more than that.
Yeah.
You, Bryan?
I think they're selling him extremely short. We saw him go toe to toe with the best quarterback in the league in the Super Bowl on the highest stage. Jalen Hurts is gonna be, in my opinion, at least the $48 to $50 annual mark. I feel like there's nothing less you can give him. But the issue at hand is they had to make it work for their cap space, right? They had to find some workaround where it alleviates the cap space going forward. And he's 24 years old. There's no way he's going to settle for less than $300 million if I'm Jalen Hurts, at least. I mean, runner-up for MVP, arguably should have been the MVP. Arguably should have been the Super Bowl MVP, even though they lost. I mean, the kid's a stud.
Yeah. He is. He's going to get his money. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly it goes, because the Eagles have this history of wanting to get things done. They know what's coming down the road. When Joe Burrow eventually signs Justin Herbert, it's only going up. So they'll try to get it done as quickly as possible. That, to me, is the biggest question. It's going to get done. It's just a matter of when and how quickly they can get it done.
Are you surprised that it's not done yet?
No, because everybody. Joe Banner unfortunately went on the Rich Eisen show and recommended Jalen Waits. And I think his agents know that. They want to see Joe Burrow. The problem is Cincinnati's not going to go quickly. The Chargers aren't going to go quickly. So those two organizations are going to be loggerheads who can get it done first. And how patient can Jalen Hurts be? We'll see. I mean, a lot of money. He hasn't made a lot of money. He just made $1 million. He's scheduled. I mean, that's a lot for us, but it's not a lot for an NFL player. So that big number is going to be very enticing for him as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Now, other free agents are leaving. Howie Roseman has been very above board for people paying attention. The Eagles are going to lose players. They're going to lose significant players. They're going to have 2024 compensatory picks because they lose players. Bryan, if I gave you 2 players that you had to have back, which 2 are you going for free agency wise?
Definitely Javon Hargrave. I think he had a coming out party a bit last season. And then I'm on the fence about this next one, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I know he's a fan favorite. I know people, love the idea of the energy he brings to Philly, which is great. He was phenomenal for us. But if you paid attention, Chauncey's actually trying to break the bank for his role, for his hybrid role. In New Orleans, he wanted to break the bank for a nickel cornerback. came to Philly, switched positions to drive up his market. The likelihood of him staying, I think, is kind of slimmer than we think, but it would definitely be CJ and Javon, in my opinion.
Those would be the two most talented. I would agree with you there. Back to the quarterback for a second. Everybody wants to know how signings affect Jalen Hurts. Like when Derek Carr signed, did it have effect on Jalen Hurts? Not really. When Daniel Jones signed the other day, other than the fact they're going to play twice a year every year, and I think the Giants kind of overpaid him at $82 million guaranteed for the first 2 years, it doesn't really affect Jalen Hurts. Burrow would. Herbert Wood, the guy who's gonna is Lamar Jackson, because that's immediate. He's already hitting the free agent market. Those two other guys have time to wait before they hit the 5th year of their contract. So neither one of those two teams, and neither one of them is chock full of money, are like uber motivated to get it done tomorrow. So if the Eagles are going to have to wait because Jalen says, I want to wait till these other two guys sign, the only one who's really going to move the needle at all on Jalen's deal is Lamar Jackson. So he's now a free agent. He can negotiate with any team. We've all read the reports on he's looking to get every dollar guaranteed like Deshaun Watson. How's Lamar Jackson's free agency going to play out there, Brian?
It's tough to say, right? I mean, you have all these random public statements that these teams are not in the running for Lamar, but I have a feeling that one team is going to come out the woodworks out of spite to sign Lamar and get him the money he wants, just because, like, there's and I hate to use it as an example. For example, like the Commanders, right? Snyder's on his way out. If I'm pissed off at the owners, if I'm pissed off at the NFL, what am I going to do? I'm going to break the bank of Lamar Jackson and just piss off everybody even more.
That's a good point. That would be a nice FU out the door for Daniel.
Yeah, that would be wild. Other than that, it's hard to say. Like, I mean, you have teams that don't want to give up 2 first-round picks in order to sign Lamar, but at the end of the day, a guy like Lamar is worth more than 2 first-round picks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I wouldn't even hesitate.
Yeah,
2 first-round picks.
But the Deshaun Watson deal it screwed up everybody, right? And all that guaranteed money and the way they maneuvered it, it's going to have ripple effects on Lamar Jackson, which is going to have ripple effects on Jalen. I think the Jalen and Eagles are waiting to see what the guaranteed money is going to look like.
Yeah, definitely. No one in the NFL is happy with the Deshaun Watson contract and the fully guaranteed nature of it. And that's the biggest issue. And we'll see if Lamar can get it from somebody. I think it's going to be really, really difficult to get that deal. Now, if he goes short term like Kirk Cousins, maybe it's a little bit more realistic. So it's going to be one of the more interesting offseason storylines. Last one from me, Brian, and follow Brian on Twitter at BCameronPSN. Eagles managing editor for the Philly Sports Network there, does stuff for the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well. So you're going to be doing stuff on Jason Kelce and probably Lane Johnson down the road. I think he's a Hall of Fame player. Fletch is going to be interesting. I'll end it there with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. We were talking yesterday on the show about paying for past performance versus paying for, what's coming up. Obviously, they're not the players they once were, but they've meant so much to this organization. How do you toe that line if you're Howie Roseman? They're still good players. Fletcher had a bounce back season. Brandon had a great season in a more limited role. But, we talked about it with Jason Kelce. I mean, there's people want to move on from Jason Kelce, still playing at an all-pro level. So,
yeah,
how do you justify bringing Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham back if it's not a really team-friendly, cost-effective deal?
They're both at needed positions. I mean, our edge depth is not there to begin with. If you lose Javon Hargrave, our defensive tackle depth is not there to begin with. In a year where you want Jordan Davis to actually, explode, actually to come on the scene and break out, you need a guy like Fletcher Cox around him, where he's actually, right next to him, helping him deliver the pressure. Brandon Graham, I feel like, is more needed than Fletcher Cox, just because edge, it's such a huge question mark going forward. Who's behind Hassan, who's behind Josh, but also Brandon Graham's leadership. I feel like is second to none. Like he took on a role this year where he was limited and he was exploding, but he was really the voice of that defensive line, which was phenomenal to see. And why not have one of these guys, finish their year finish their career as an Eagle? I mean, I think we're due for that in this case. We lost Brian Dawkins. We lost Malcolm Jenkins. Like these kind of guys, you don't want to see them wearing different jerseys at the end of their career and not benefiting from their environment. I feel like Brandon Graham on the Browns does not make any sense. Fletcher Cox on the Browns does not make any sense because you're not going to win anything. Your best position of play right now is to stay in Philly. The hope is that it is team friendly, but at the end of the day, I mean, how many Eagles fans you see in the parking lots wearing Fletcher Cox jerseys? Like this guy deserves to be retiring as an Eagle.
All right, last one for me, Brian. I've asked this of a bunch of people over the last week or so. First year in an Eagle uniform, Kenneth Gainwell, 68 carries, 291 yards, 5 touchdowns, 33 receptions, 253 yards with a touchdown. Pretty good as a rook. This year, 53 carries, so 15 less carries, 240 yards, 51 less yards, and 23 receptions as compared to 33. So he went backwards in receptions too. Year 2, not as productive as year 1. As of right now, he's Eagles RB1. Can the Eagles go next year with, and we know they don't have, quote unquote, a bell cow back. Very few teams in the league do. The Eagles are just one of many that use. Excuse me, I get choked up talking about this.
Choked up talking about Kenny. Kenny's run late. Yeah.
Yeah. Can he be the Eagles' lead back next year? Do you have enough faith in Kenneth Gainwell that if they hand it to him more than anyone else next year, the Eagle running game will be fine?
I think they will be. I think it's more faith in the offensive line and the scheme. And also, we've seen what he did in the playoffs. Like Kenny's able to disappear in between the tackles and make big explosive plays when needed. He's also able to catch out of the backfield consistently. Will he be the number 1 running back? I don't believe so. But I wouldn't be against it at all. I think he can actually do it.
Great stuff, Brian. We appreciate you coming on board with us today. We will be getting in touch that much more often during the off season. Thanks for a couple minutes today.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys for having me on, honestly. Really appreciate
Bryan
it.
Cameron, PhillySportsNetwork.com. He is the managing editor of Eagles content. If you don't check out that website, you should. PhillySportsNetwork.com. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. A couple more things we got to get in. Hour number 2, we'll go a little bit more combine/draft intensive. Ian Cummings is a guy we had on a couple of times last year. He covers the NFL draft for NFLnetwork.com. Does a real good job. We haven't had him on yet this year because this is now his season. It's Howie's season, and it's Ian's season because the draft is already closing in on us, just over 2 months away. Ian Cummings will join us about 25 minutes from now, but more Mac and Mac here on Bird.